All right, so just starting in a comfortable seat, whatever that means for your body this morning. And really taking the time to settle in, let yourself wiggle a little bit. Maybe you need to kind of roll a little bit. Just seeing what makes sense as you invite your body to settle. With that open permission, as always, to do or not do any part of practice. So, really listening to that inner wisdom, respecting the temple of the body, and just operating within your own means without any kind of expectations, eliminating the word should from your practice. Oh, I should be following along. I should be doing this. I should be deeper in this pose. Just forget all that and do what makes sense for you. So, this is where we begin. Letting there be a sense of length that starts to move through your spine as you start to stretch up towards the sky. And then invite some ease into your shoulders and do a few little teeny tiny movements. Maybe it's kind of a dropping down, like someone's pushing on your shoulders. Maybe it's little tiny circles within the socket. Maybe it's a combination of those movements. So what makes sense as you start to invite some space into the neck and shoulder area. And eventually find a little bit of stillness there. Inviting a nice deep breath in through the nose if possible. And then let it go with a sigh. Just pausing to observe. And letting your mind's eye just kind of gradually sweep up and down the body. And it's not just a linear observation, it's like you're in some kind of scan and it's a whole 3D experience as you allow your mind to just kind of sweep up, down, all around, above, below. Are there places within your mental, physical, energetic layers that need that extra little bit of TLC? Purposely swallow, clear some space in the throat. And then slowly investigating the possibility of gradually opening your mouth, stretching it wide, and then very slowly, mindfully letting the jaw close again. And maybe you cycle through that movement several times to really start to feel a release through the jaw. If a yawn naturally arises from this movement, just let it cycle through. Don't try to stifle it in any way. And then you'll invite your pointer finger and maybe the middle finger to sit right at that little base of your ear here. So you could have one finger in front of the lobe and one behind, and just see about gently massaging those little spots, with the option to incorporate that opening and closing of the mouth. And then we'll trace the jawline. So as you slowly start to open your mouth, let the fingers follow the line of your bones down until you reach towards the chin, and then come back to the top and do that 2 more times. And then just come to allow your hands to rest in your lap for a moment. Just feel into the various sensations that are present in your head, in your neck. And then we'll, still using those first 2 fingers, we're going to make little knuckles here. So bending at the knuckle, so you've got like a little V. If you're wearing glasses, you're going to want to take them off once you see where we're going, of course. So with the knuckles facing in towards your eye sockets and the ridge of the nose, we slowly drag out around the eye socket towards the temples, and maybe you give yourself a little rub and a bit of pressure when you get to the outer edge, and then come back to the center, and again drag around the eye socket with as much or as little pressure as your body requires right now. And just doing that a couple more times. And again, allow for the hands to drop back in your lap. Pause and feel. And then we'll come to do that same little bit of a sweeping motion now down into the cheekbone. And you could use the knuckles again, or if you wanted to, you could just use your fingers. So what approach feels best? And you kind of come from the lower part of the nose and drag along those cheekbones. You've got sinus cavities in there. I'm trying to take a few deeper breaths as we massage into these tender spaces. A couple more sweeps along the cheekbones. And then again, let your hands fall into the lap. Pause and feel. And you'll come to invite your fingertips up to the hairline. And we're just going to do a little massage across the scalp. So maybe you're just dragging your fingers in a straight line. Maybe you're doing little massaging circles as you explore this. Going from the front to the back, making sure you give a little bit of extra love at the base of the skull. Use your thumbs and kind of dig into tender spots back there if you can. And the next time that your hands reach the base of the skull, keep them there and slowly start to drop your chin towards the chest. And maybe you massage into that little notch at the back of your head. And you have the option here to take your thumbs, bring them down the length of the neck, and slowly draw up towards that little notch in your skull. And do that a couple times. And then we'll give the hands, the shoulders, the arms a break. Keep the chin tucked in towards the chest. Let's do 3 clearing breaths here, in through the nose, and let your sigh leave the body with a bit of sound. And we'll invite the right ear to roll over towards the right shoulder. Just feeling into the weight of your head the longer that you stay here. Feel into this gradual opening down the left side of your neck towards the shoulder. And let's drop that left arm off to the side. Open the palm forward so the thumb is pointing up. Just notice how that may have changed your sensory experience. And then little movement here. So as you start to exhale, turn the thumb down towards the ground and turn your chin towards that right shoulder. And you can play with the rotation in your arm. So it might be a very subtle movement, or maybe you're spinning fairly far. Inhale, we drop the ear back towards the shoulder, thumb turns up towards the sky. And maybe your gaze shoots up on a bit of an angle here. And then we exhale, turn down, thumb and chin. Settling into your own rhythm here, slow and curious, so not rushing any of this. And operating based on the signals your body is giving you. We'll do this one more time. And let the arm relax into your lap, and little by little the chin finds its way towards the chest. Breathing here. Knowing that you can change the way that your body is oriented at any point while we're doing these little seated opening sequences. Let's start to roll that left ear over towards the left shoulder, pausing there, just being curious as you feel the weight of your head becoming a little more pronounced. Gentle breath. And then letting that right arm drop off to the side. Beautiful deep breaths here. And let's open up that right hand, thumb pointing up towards the ceiling. We tap into that slow movement, exhaling, chin down towards that left shoulder, thumb gradually turns down. Maybe the arm spins a bit further and the thumb points back. And then inhaling, ear to shoulder, thumb turns up, and maybe the gaze comes up on an angle. And then finding your rhythm. Exhale, turning down. Inhaling, opening back up. Try to keep your face relaxed here. If you found that maybe you're starting to tighten up through the jaw, see if you can get a little bit of softness in there. Let's do this one more time. And gently releasing the arm, and gradually chin makes its way back towards the chest. Deep breath in here. And setting it free. Let's give ourselves one last little massage through the neck up towards the skull. And then letting that go, lifting the head. Let's come into a few bigger shoulder rolls here. Maybe you get some little creaks and pops in your back. I know my upper spine just went creaky creak. So maybe you're having those little defixation moments too. Pause in that movement. Just feel maybe there's warmth or tingling or something else. And then we change the direction. So we roll the other way. Ooh. And then we let that go. Come back to stillness. So if you happen to have been in Sukhasana, your easy pose, just taking a moment, extend the legs, maybe give them a little shake and wiggle. Let's just get the blood circulating back in there. And if you're feeling like you need some other movement in this little interlude, then please just invite that in. Maybe the neck still feels a little bit stiff or tender and you want to stretch it out some more. Alrighty, so if it's okay for your body to come back into easy pose, if that's where you were sitting, then doing that. If you need to completely rearrange, then by all means do that. We're not going to be here for too much longer. We're going to bring back in that namaste flow, the somatic flow, just to continue to release through the upper back and really connect to our breath this morning. So we're going to start with hands at the heart. Just taking a few cycles of breath here. And if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of extra pressure to your palms and let the elbows open up to the side. Just feel some strength in those muscles. And then you can soften the pressure in your hands. Come back to that Anjali Mudra, resting at the heart. We'll go through the first round nice and slow, and then we'll just settle into a rhythm. I take an inhale here. And as you start to exhale, we make that little triangle with the thumb and the first few fingers, and we slowly start to push that out as we drop the chin, tuck the pelvis, rounding out, Get a nice stretch through the upper back. We're just hanging out here for a couple of breaths through this first round, really feeling that stretch and release. And with your next inhale, the spine straightens and we sweep the arms up overhead, stretching towards sky. Maybe the gaze turns up as well if it feels okay. Nice and open here. And then we exhale and release, fan the arms out to the side. Maybe the fingertips graze the earth, and then they come back to the heart, Anjali Mudra. So now we anchor breath and movement, inhaling. Exhale, that little triangle push forward as the head drops, body rounds. Inhaling, releasing the arms, sweeping them up and overhead. Maybe a little back bend here if it feels good, an extension. And then exhale, release, hands down to the side and bring them back to the heart. Let's do that 4 more times. Breathing in here. Exhale, pushing away, rounding in. Inhale, sweeping up to sky. Exhale, release down to the sides, clearing everything out. Recentering at heart. Breathing in here. Exhale, round and push. Inhale, sweep up. Exhale, release down to the sides and back to the heart. 2 more rounds to go. And for this last one, maybe see if you can slow the breath down, stretch it out a bit more. And after you've completed your last round, allow the hands to drop into your lap, releasing breath here. And let's take ourselves away from the floor slightly. So we're going to come to all fours. Padding up those knees if you need to. And coming into your tabletop, fanning out nice and wide through those fingers. So you're really tapping into this sense of connection with the earth. Lengthen through the spine. So that subtle dropping of the tailbone makes the spine feel longer. Subtle hugging in through the core, especially the lower abdominals. And the gaze is straight down, like there's that little string at the crown of your head is being pulled directly out to the wall in front of you. So everything is long from tip to tail. Simply breathing here. And then we'll go through a few rounds of cow and cat to whatever degree your spine is willing to move this morning. So it might be itty bitty movements where you're just barely moving the pelvis and the spine, or maybe you feel like exploring that full wave of cow cat. Inhale, energy moves downwards towards the earth, and then as we exhale, we pull everything into the core, rounding out if you're doing that full cat pose. Let's go through 3 more breath cycles here with the movement. And coming out of that last one, just walk the hands back towards the knees and let's stretch into a high kneeling. Just allow your hands to drop to your side. And maybe you start to wiggle through those fingers and roll through the wrists. So we're going to come back down into that all fours position and we're going to mindfully move through sunbird balance. So where we're stretching out opposite arm and leg, but it's going to be a very fluid approach. So I think I've done this a few times in this practice or this particular style of practice. So we're just looking to find a little bit of core stability and some fluidity in connection to breath and movement. I would suggest you take your hands a little bit wider on your mat, maybe even the pinky and ring finger, possibly even the middle finger kind of hang off the edge of your mat, depending on the width of it. That'll just give you support here. Okay. So let's start by stretching that right leg out behind us. If it feels okay to tuck the toes and put a bit of pressure in the foot to stretch the calf and the hamstrings and the sole of the foot, do so. Otherwise, maybe it's just a tapping of the toe. And then you'll float that right leg up. Feel into that. Hug in through the abdominals and explore reaching forward with that left arm. Let the palm turn in. So try not to sag through the belly. Squeeze and engage those core muscles. And then we'll release. Bring the hand, the knee back to the mat. Stretch it out the other way. So that left leg out, maybe those toes are tucking underneath and you're putting a bit of pressure into the foot. Or maybe you're just reaching the leg close to the ground right now. And then we float the leg up, finding that sense of stability in the body, core is engaged. And then you play with floating the right arm away from you, palm turning in, keeping everything lifted in the center. We're not sagging or twisting. And then gently release, hand and knee back to the mat. So the body has that sense of extension and now we're going to flow. So as we inhale, we stretch opposite arm and leg. And as we exhale, we come back to the earth. So returning to right leg, left arm, inhale, float, engage and squeeze at the top, and then exhale, release and switch. Left leg, right arm, reach, and then release. And just keep moving with us. Taking a break if you need to take a break. Always the option to do or not do. But letting that inner wisdom be the guidance system. We'll do this one more time to each side. And coming out of that last one, let's find a child's pose here, sinking in. Wiggle and roll through the fingers and the wrists. And then let's lift ourselves up just a little bit. Hands stretching away from you. We're going to do a twisting child's pose here. So we're going to anchor into that left hand and invite the right arm to slide underneath as far as you can get it to go. Shoulder drops towards the ground, ear drops towards the ground. Maybe the left arm stays reaching, or maybe you invite it into the low back and you make a loose fist around your thumb. Beautiful deep breaths here. Expanding into that right shoulder, into your back. Can you let the weight of your body come into that shoulder by chance? One more breath here. Releasing, bringing the left palm underneath the shoulder and slowly pushing up and away as you invite that right arm back to its proper side. Let's take a tabletop here. And if your body feels it needs to stretch up into a down dog at this point, you could invite that in or simply stay as you are, maybe a few cow cats. Just giving the body a moment to recalibrate. And then returning to that child's pose setup. And we're now threading the left arm underneath the right one. So anchoring into your right palm, diving that left arm underneath and seeing what works here. One more breath in your twist, and gradually releasing that right palm underneath the shoulder so you can push up and away. And let's come over onto our backs on the mat to integrate from there. Just making sure you've got your block accessible and your blanket or cushion. So down on our backs, if you wish, you can bring your knees towards your chest and rock a little bit. And then we'll bring the feet to the ground if you happen to have been rocking. Pause there for a moment. Arms just resting comfortably somewhere at your side. I invite you to check in with your hips and your back in this moment. We're going to do a little bit of a psoas release, so the hip flexor space. So the question is, do you wish to be elevated this morning on block or maybe the folded blanket underneath your sacrum? Or would you prefer to do this flat to the ground? So it really, really, really depends on the state of sensation in your hips and your back. Do you wish to be lifted or not? So I'm going to do this with block in place. And you can follow along with support or no support. The leg movements will be the same. So if you're joining me with the support in place, heels to the ground, push some weight in there and float the hips up high enough that you can place the support underneath your back. And it's in that sacral area. So there's a little triangle of bone that leads towards your tailbone. That's what we're aiming for. And so finding that sweet spot where you feel well supported if you're joining me there. And then we'll draw the knees towards the chest. So you're either doing this on the ground and giving yourself a nice little hug and squeeze, or you're doing it balancing on your support. And then the hands will keep the right knee tucked in. And we'll stretch the left leg up. Point and flex through that left foot a few times, roll through the ankle. And then slow and steady, flexing into your left foot so the toes are trying to point towards your nose. Little by little, breath by breath, you start to lower that left leg down towards the ground. Making sure you're breathing deeply. And as you're doing this, you may be able to feel your psoas, your hip flexor being massaged, because it runs from the inside of the knee up through the groin and into the abdomen towards the diaphragm. So as you breathe, you might actually feel that long line of muscle stretching and releasing. So the heel touches down. Take a breath there. And then with the toes pointing up towards the ceiling, hover the leg just above the floor. And then relax, bring the heel back to the ground. Relax the foot. And then you're going to lift the foot again and turn the toes outwards, so an external rotation. Continuing to breathe. And then we let that go. Heel taps the earth for a moment. And then lift the leg, turn the toes inwards. So it feels like your heel is pointing out to the left, toes are pointing over to the right. And breathe. And then slowly release. Drag that foot along the floor, bring the knee back towards the chest, pausing here. Switching it around, we keep the left knee tucked in, right leg stretches up. Start with the movement through the foot and the ankle, point, flex, a few rolls in each direction. And then flexing into the foot, toes are wanting to point towards your nose. Once again, little by little, this journey down with that extended leg towards the earth. Heel touches down, you let the leg relax for a moment, a couple of deep breaths. And then activating the leg, toes to the ceiling, inhale, lift and hover that leg just above the ground. Breathing here. And relax. We once again lift and now turn the toes out towards the right side. External rotation. Breathing. And then release. Last time, lift, turn the toes inwards, internal rotation. And let it go. Gradually slide that foot along the floor, knee comes back towards the chest. Pausing there. And then slow and steady, we bring the feet back to the ground, either together or one at a time. If you're elevated on some kind of support, you'll mindfully lift those hips to take the support out. And then vertebrae by vertebrae, we lower down. And if you were flat on your back, you could do a couple little pelvic tilts or pelvic rocks. In fact, we'll all come and do that here. So the heels are to the ground. As you're inhaling, tip the tailbone towards the earth, exaggerate the curve in your spine. And then as you exhale, push into the heels, squeeze the glutes, barely lift your hips off the floor. Flatten out the curve in your back. And just do that a couple times. And releasing from all of that movement. Let's take the feet towards the width of the mat and just do some slow windshield wipers here. And if it feels okay for you to do so while your legs are swishing in the windshield wiper movement, see about maybe turning your head in the opposite direction of your knees. So as the knees drop left, gaze rolls right, everything comes back to center and then you switch. Only if it feels okay for the neck. One more time here. Just making sure you've balanced everything out. Finding your way back towards center. And then block, book, blanket, whatever you are using as a prop, we're going to place it underneath our heads. So if you're using block, it's most certainly on its lowest edge. And we're bringing that long edge to the base of the skull, so the occiput. And we're letting that support drop the chin further towards the chest. So you're getting a nice little tractioning through your neck. And you can do this with feet to the ground, or if you want to stretch your legs long, you can do that too. Just breathing here, letting the body relax. And if you've got one of the harder props, so a block or a book underneath your head, you may wish to explore just letting the gaze turn from one shoulder to the other to massage out the base of the skull to help relax the eyes. And if you're using a blanket here, you could always bring your hands, or your thumbs more importantly, to that same spot, that base of the skull, and just rock side to side with your thumbs pushing into those little fleshy mounds in the occiput. And if you were engaging in that bit of movement, let that gradually subside. One more breath through stillness. And then removing that support from underneath your head and just lowering down. Feel into the lingerings. And seeing if there's anything else you need to do as you enter into Shavasana. Do you need to place blanket under knees or cover up or add layers? Eventually dropping into a place of stillness and just giving yourself over to the earth. Let all the movement, all the efforting go. Letting the entirety of your being get heavier and heavier. Each breath, another opportunity to potentially relax a little bit more. And if you find yourself a little bit fidgety, a little bit restless here, offer 3 clearing breaths, 3 releasing breaths with sound. There's nothing left to do. Breath returns to natural rhythm and the body rests gently against the earth, fully supported. Breathe and allow. sounds from the chime to bring your attention back to you. Feeling into the weight of your body against the earth. And from that place of connection, you lovingly begin to move about, letting those inner whispers guide you through movement. Maybe rolling around, stretching, yawning. Being oh so loving with yourself as you gradually come back towards a place of sitting. And once you've returned to that place where spine reaches between heaven and earth, we invite one hand to the heart and the other one to the belly. A moment with this connection to honor the precious body that is yours, for its breath, for its movement, for its stillness. And gratitude towards yourself for the courage and the willingness to step on the mat to practice today. And thanks to all of the puzzle pieces that fell into place to allow us to connect and share. Offer a single Om to close this practice. Deep breath in and let it go. Finding sound. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste.